There's a special kind of quiet in the early morning here in my house on this peaceful street in Falls Church. The world outside is still waking up. I sit at the kitchen table with a steaming cup of strong tea, the paper spread out before me, flipping through its pages slowly. The sun is just beginning to rise, casting a soft pink glow over the rooftops of the houses nearby. This calm, gentle moment belongs only to me. No phone ringing, no urgent requests, no one needing anything. Just me in the silence. My name is Judith Walpole, and I'm 68 years old. For the last 3 years I've lived alone in this 2-story house that my husband Edmund and I worked so hard to pay off over nearly 2 decades. Edmund passed away suddenly from a heart attack, leaving me with this house, a small insurance policy, and a lifetime full of memories. 42 years of marriage, laughter, challenges and love. Sometimes, when something goes wrong around the house, like the lawnmower breaks down or the kitchen faucet starts leaking, I find myself talking to him. "Edmund," I say quietly, glancing at his photo on the mantelpiece. "Your son changed our meeting again. He says it's because of some important work." In the picture, Edmund's grey eyes seem to look back at me with a slight, proud smile. He was always proud of our only son, Quentin. "That boy will go far," he would say when Quentin went off to college to study computer science. And he was right. Quentin has done well for himself, at least financially. He's now the CIO of a big logistics company. They live in a beautiful house in a fancy neighborhood. They have 2 cars and even a yacht docked somewhere along the coast. Today is Wednesday, which means it's my day to pick up the grandchildren, Ethan and Piper, from school. Heather, Quentin's wife, works late on Wednesdays. She has meetings at the clinic, and their nanny is taking the night off because of a toothache. So, Grandma Judith steps in like always. I don't mind. I enjoy the time I get to spend with the kids, even though my relationship with Ethan has become a little strained lately. 14 is a tough age. Piper, at 10, still manages to find some connection with her old grandma. Then there's little Lily, the youngest, only 4 years old. I babysit her on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She has some allergy that the doctors haven't been able to figure out exactly what triggers it. Heather doesn't trust ordinary babysitters to handle Lily's special needs, and I suspect there's more to it than just that. Maybe Heather just wants me around. After all, Grandma Judith never charges a cent for babysitting. By 3 o'clock, I'm already standing by the school gate, waiting for the bell to ring. Slowly, parents and grandparents arrive. Most of them are younger than me, and I catch some curious glances as I approach. I imagine them thinking, will I really look like her when I'm that age? The bell rings and a noisy crowd of kids pours out of the school doors. Piper spots me immediately and waves with excitement. "Grandma," she shouts as she runs toward me, arms wide for a hug. I pull her close, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and bubble gum. "How was your day, sunshine?" I ask. "Fine," she replies quickly, and then launches into a story about her math test, the new girl in her class, and the solo she was given in the school choir. A few minutes later, Ethan appears. He's tall for his age, almost as tall as me now. His backpack hangs loosely over one shoulder, and he has headphones on, with music muffled beneath them. "Hi, Grandma," he mumbles without looking my way or taking off the headphones. "Hello, Ethan. How's school?" I ask. "Fine," he shrugs. The typical teenager answer to grown-up questions. We walk to my car. An old Honda Civic Edmund, bought the year before he died. Quentin has told me several times to get a newer, safer car, but I refuse. I like my Honda. It's reliable, economical, and it was Edmund's last gift to me. On the way home, Piper chatters non-stop about school. projects and friends, while Ethan stays silent, eyes fixed on his phone. Sometimes, I catch him staring out the window with a look that seems to say he feels trapped at home. I prepare snacks, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for Piper, turkey and cheese for Ethan. Piper sits at the kitchen table doing her homework, while Ethan disappears into the living room to watch TV. Ethan, I call after him. Homework first, then TV. He lets out a heavy sigh, as if I've asked him to do something impossible. Grandma, I don't have any homework today. You don't? I say skeptically. Let me check your journal. God, Grandma, you're so annoying. He complains but pulls out a crumpled sheet from his backpack. Sure enough, there's nothing written for today. Okay, I say. Then you can watch TV, but no more than an hour. And don't forget about your science test coming up. He looks surprised. How do you know about the test? Your mom texted me, I say with a smile. She asked me to make sure you study. Ethan rolls his eyes and mutters something I pretend not to hear. Heather arrives at 5 p.m., rushing in as usual, tall, slim, perfectly put together with flawless hair and makeup. Even after a long day at work, she looks like she just stepped out of a beauty salon. Judith, thank you so much, she says, kissing my cheek. She smells of expensive perfume and antiseptic. You've been such a help. You're welcome, dear, I reply. The kids have eaten. Piper finished her homework. Heather glances toward the living room, where Ethan still sits in front of the TV. He says he has no homework today, but a science test to study for. She sighs. I'll talk to him. Don't you want to stay for dinner? I ordered Chinese food. It should be here soon. No thanks, I say, shaking my head. I have plans. That's not true. I just want to go home, soak in a hot bath, and read the new detective novel I borrowed from the library. But I know Heather's invitation is polite, not sincere. And I've noticed how Quentin wrinkles his nose whenever I stay longer than necessary. At home, I turn on the radio and start cooking. I rarely cook for myself usually. I eat salad or canned soup. But tonight, I want something special. So I take chicken breast out of the freezer to make chicken curry, Edmund's favorite. The meat defrosts, I sit back down at the kitchen table and sort through the mail. Mostly bills and flyers, but one letter catches my eye, a letter from my friend Eloise, who moved to Florida after her husband died. She writes that she bought a small house near the ocean and invites me to visit. Judith, you'll love it. Here, she writes. Sun, sea, no cold winters and no obligations to children or grandchildren. I'm finally living for myself. I smile as I picture Eloise on the sunny beach. We've been friends since college. I've always admired her courage and independence. She was the first of us to divorce when her husband cheated. The first to buy her own house after. Now, at 69, she's starting a new chapter. I reply that I'll come to visit as soon as I'm free of my responsibilities to my grandchildren. But deep down, I know that probably won't be soon. Quentin and Heather depend too much on my help. Even if they never say it aloud. Later that evening, Quentin calls. It's rare. He usually texts or asks Heather to call me. Hi, Mom. His voice sounds strained. How are you? Fine, thanks, I answer, wondering what he wants. How's work? The kids? Everything's fine. He pauses, then says, Listen, Mom, I've been meaning to ask. You and Dad had some savings for your old age, right? I knew this was coming, the money talk. Yes, we did, I say carefully. Why? He clears his throat. Heather and I are looking at a bigger house, one with a pool and a playroom for the kids. But we don't have enough for a down payment. I wait quietly for him to continue. And I thought, maybe you could help. It's for the kids. They'd each have their own room, and there'd be space for you if you wanted to stay the night. Quentin, I say slowly, I have some savings, but they're for my old age, for when I might get sick or need special care. But, Mum, he said, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice, you really don't need such a big house. You could sell it, buy something smaller and easier to manage, and then split the money. Some for your old age and some to help us buy a new house. That's all I'm saying. Now the conversation had shifted to my house. The house I loved. The home my husband and I built together over so many years. I should have expected this. Quentin and Heather had been dropping hints about this for years, suggesting I simplify my life, sell the house, and move somewhere smaller, somewhere better suited to my age. I like my house, I said firmly, trying to keep my voice steady. Your father and I picked it out together. We paid the mortgage for years. Every corner holds a memory of him. Mum, it's been 3 years, he said impatiently. You can't live in the past forever. You need to think about the future. Your future, our future. His voice was sharp, almost like he was trying to push me into seeing things his way. You'd be much more comfortable in an apartment in a care home. No more gardening or repairs, and medical care just a few steps away. I felt my voice tremble, a mix of indignation and hurt. I'm 68, not 88, I said firmly. I'm doing perfectly fine on my own, and I am not moving into a nursing home. It's not a nursing home, Mum, he sighed, like I was a child who couldn't understand. It's a state-of-the-art retirement complex. There's a pool, a gym, hobby clubs. It's designed for active retirees. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself. Quentin, I appreciate your concern, but I don't want to move. And I can't give you money for a new house. I don't have much savings. Myself. There was a heavy silence on the other end of the line. I could almost feel his disappointment hanging in the air. Okay, he said at last, his voice softer. I get it. I'm sorry to bother you. Then he hung up without waiting for a reply. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, feeling a familiar heaviness settle inside me. This was always how it went. The moment I refused to give in to his requests, he closed off like a clam, shutting me out. He'd been like that even when he was a boy. If he didn't get what he wanted, he'd sulk and not speak to me for days. I got up and walked to the window. Outside, darkness had fallen, and the lights were on in the windows of the neighboring houses. I saw faint silhouettes moving behind the curtains, families gathering for dinner, parents helping children with homework, couples watching the evening news. Ordinary life. Life I had once known too. I turned back to the kitchen and finished my dinner. The chicken curry didn't taste as good as usual, probably because I cooked it with frustration weighing on me. I ate slowly, barely tasting the food, my mind replaying the conversation with my son. It wasn't that I didn't want to help Quentin and his family. I was just tired of feeling like a resource, like my money and my house were theirs to use as they pleased. He never asks what I want, what I hope for in the future. He just assumes that at my age, I should sell everything and live out my days in a nursing home, while he enjoys living in my house or spending the money from its sale. After dinner, I poured myself a glass of red wine, a small luxury I allowed once a week. Edmund always said red wine was good for the heart. We used to have a glass in the evening, sharing stories about our day. I raised my glass toward his photo on the mantelpiece. Here's to you, darling, I whispered. I wish you could see what our son has become. I know you'd be upset by the way Quentin treats me. You always taught him to respect his elders, to be grateful, and never take people for granted. Seems those lessons didn't stick. The next day was Thursday, which meant it was my day to sit with Lily. I arrived at Quentin and Heather's house just after 8 in the morning. Heather opened the door, already dressed and ready for work, flawless makeup, stylish suit, hair perfectly done. "Good morning, Judith," she said, letting me in. Lily was still eating breakfast at the table. I noticed a do list stuck on the refrigerator. "Oh, and please don't give her any sweets today. She had a tantrum before bed last night, probably because of sugar," Heather warned. I nodded, though I doubted that sugar was really the cause. More likely, Lily was upset because she barely saw her mother these days, just an hour between work and bedtime. Heather threw on her coat and added, "Quentin and I will be late tonight. We have a meeting with the realtor about the new house. You'll be able to stay longer, right?" I held back a sigh, wondering if the meeting was a direct result of last night's conversation. "Of course," I said politely. "Don't worry." Heather smiled warmly. "Thank you, Judith. You're a real treasure." She kissed me on the cheek and left. I walked into the kitchen where Lily sat, trying to scoop cereal and milk with her spoon. When she saw me, her face lit up with a big smile, and she showed off a milk mustache. "Grandma!" she shouted, stretching her arms out. I hugged her tightly, feeling my heart warm. These moments of pure love were why I put up with everything else. The day passed with our usual routine: playing, reading books, walking in the park, cooking dinner. Lily was curious and full of energy, never bored. By mid-afternoon, she grew tired and fell asleep on the couch while watching cartoons. I covered her with a soft plaid and sat beside her, scrolling through news on my tablet. Suddenly, the phone rang. It was Quentin. "Mum," he said without any greeting, "Heather and I are at the house we want to buy. The realtor says there's another family interested, and we need to decide quickly. I was wondering, maybe you'd reconsider helping us after all." I felt irritation bubbling inside me. "Quentin, I already told you yesterday." Yes, I know," he interrupted. "But I thought maybe you changed your mind. This house is perfect for us and for you too. There's a guest room on the first floor with its own bathroom. You wouldn't have to climb stairs." "I'm not going to live with you," I said firmly. "And I can't give you money for a down payment. I need my savings." "Mom, you're being unbearable," he snapped, clearly annoyed. "We're offering you the perfect deal, and you're just being stubborn. What do you want? For me and the kids to live cramped while you take up the whole house alone?" "Quentin, I don't have to answer that," I started, but he cut me off again. "Forget it. We can do this without your help. I just don't understand why you're so selfish." Then he hung up. I sat there staring at the phone, feeling a lump in my throat. Selfish. My own son thinks I'm selfish because I won't sell my house or give him my savings so he can buy a bigger home with a pool. Saturday began like any other day. I woke up, made tea, and opened my new detective novel. After a week with the grandchildren, I craved some quiet to rest and recharge. The weather was clear, and I planned to work in the garden that afternoon, prune the rose bushes and weed the flower beds. Around 11, I heard a car pull up. Looking out the window, I saw Quentin's shiny black SUV parked in front of my house. Strange, he usually calls before visiting, especially on weekends. Even stranger, I saw not just Heather get out, but also a woman carrying a large, thick folder. Before they could ring the doorbell, I opened the door. "Quentin, Heather, is something wrong?" I asked, trying to keep the worry from my voice. The thought flashed through my mind. "Is it something with the kids?" "It's okay, Mom," Quentin said, kissing my cheek. "We thought we'd stop by while the kids are in their classes. We want to talk about something." They walked into the house. Heather smiled her professional smile at me. The same smile she uses for co-workers and strangers. "Judith, meet Olivia Taft." Heather introduced the stranger. She's an interior designer who works with our friends, the Cormacks. You remember their house? The one with the amazing kitchen island. I vaguely remembered the Cormacks' house. We'd been to their house for Christmas dinner last year. The house was stylish, but a little too sterile for my taste. Like no one lived there. Nice to meet you, I said, shaking Olivia's hand. She was younger than Heather, with a fashionable haircut and expensive but discreet clothes. Likewise, Mrs. Walpole, she said. Your son has told me so much about your home. I look forward to seeing it. I glanced questioningly at Quentin. He coughed nervously. Let's go into the living room, he said, heading into the back of the house as confidently as if it were his own. Mom, will you make us some coffee? It didn't sound like a question, but an order. I silently headed for the kitchen, trying to figure out what was going on. While I was making coffee, there were animated voices coming from the living room. I heard phrases like, space potential, remove those old panels and completely remodel the kitchen. When I returned with my tray, I found Olivia taking pictures of my living room on her phone. Heather was at the window critically examining the curtains, and Quentin was pacing around the room, pointing out various interior details. And those bookshelves will certainly have to go, he said. They make the room look cramped and dark. I apologize, I interjected, setting the tray on the coffee table. But what exactly is going on? All three of them turned to me, as if they just remembered I existed. Mom. Quentin smiled. That special smile he used when he wanted to convince me of something. We've decided to help you with the renovations. The house needs updating. You can see that. Olivia is the best designer in town, and she agreed to look at your house and suggest renovation options. But I didn't ask for renovations. I objected. I like me house the way it is. Mum, that's very nice, but honestly, everything in here is outdated. Quentin made a sweeping gesture across the room. The wiring, the plumbing, the finishes, everything needs updating. It's not just a matter of aesthetics, but safety as well. Mrs. Walpole, Olivia intervened. Your house has excellent potential. With the right approach, we could increase its value by 30 to 40%. It's a very good investment, not an investment, I interjected. I'm not going to sell the house. Not now, of course, Heather said quickly. But in the future, when you decide it's time to move to a smaller place, or maybe a retirement community. I looked at the three of them, suddenly feeling like a stranger in my own home. They were discussing the future of my house as if I had already signed the papers to sell it, or worse, as if I were no longer alive. I'm not moving anywhere, I said firmly. And I don't need repairs. If the wiring or plumbing needs updating, I'll call in the experts myself. Mom. Quentin rolled his eyes like he used to do when he was a teenager, when he thought I was hopelessly out of touch with life. You don't understand. It's not just a renovation. It's a complete overhaul. Olivia is proposing to transform your home into a modern functional space. Imagine open floor plan, smart home, everything controlled. From your phone, lights, heating, security. I don't want an open floor plan, I objected. And I don't want to control the house from my phone. I like my light switches and the thermostat on the wall. Judith, Heather said softly. We just want you to live in comfort and safety. Modern technology can be very helpful to a person at your age. Miage, I repeated slowly. What age? Well, you know. Heather hesitated. When you start to forget things, when it's harder to manage the day-to-day. I don't have dementia, Heather, I said sharply. I'm perfectly capable of handling my own affairs. I've been an accountant for 30 years, and I still remember the phony numbers of all my friends and the birthdays of all my relatives, including your parents. whom you'll forget to contact even on holidays. Heather blushed and turned away. Quentin stepped forward, his face hard. Don't talk to Heather like that, he said in a quiet, threatening tone. She cares for you more than you deserve. Cares? I felt a wave of anger rising inside me. You call that caring? Barging into my house unannounced with some designer, and planning how to remodel my house without asking my opinion. We're asking your opinion right now, Quinton exclaimed. But you're stubborn as always, and refuse to see that we want. What's best for us? What's best for whom? I asked. For me or for you? Because I think you've already mentally moved into this house and are dividing up my possessions. What nonsense! Quentin raised his voice. We just want to help you renovate the house. What if I told you I don't want any help that are like my house the way it is? Then I'll say you're a selfish old woman who's too hung up on the past. Quentin blurted out, his face red with anger. This isn't Father's house anymore, Mother. He's been gone for 3 years. It's time to move in. There was a heavy silence in the room. Olivia looked extremely uncomfortable. Heather was staring at the floor and Quentin was breathing heavily, clenching and unclenching his fists. I think you should leave, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. We're not going anywhere until we discuss this like adults, Quentin said. Stubbornly, Olivia's made time for us, and we're going to look around the house and make a plan for repairs. No, you're not doing that. I stood right in front of him. This is my house, Quentin. It's mine, not yours. And I decide what I do in it and when I do it. Oh, come on. He threw up his hands. We all know that sooner or later this house will be mine. Why put off the inevitable? You can't live here forever, Mom. There will come a time when you won't be able to look after the house, climb the stairs, manage the garden, and then what? Then I will decide for myself what to do, I replied. Now I'm going to ask you to leave. Maybe we should really come back another time, Heather suggested quietly, glancing at Olivia, who was already starting to put her papers back in the folder. No, Quentin slammed his fist down on the table, making the cups bounce. We'll discuss this now. I could hear the frustration in his voice, sharper than before. I'm tired of your stubbornness, Mom, Quentin said, his words cutting through the air. You live all alone in a 4-bedroom house, while we squeeze into a house half the size with 3 kids. It just doesn't make sense. It's selfish. You're being selfish. I felt my hands start to shake, my heart pounding. I don't owe you an explanation for how I live, I replied quietly but firmly. Your father and I worked hard to earn this house. We paid the mortgage every month for 30 years. This is our house, not just yours. His face twisted in anger. Dad's gone, he shouted, voice rising. And we're here now. We're your real family. But it doesn't seem like you care about us. All you care about is yourself. Before I could respond, Heather stepped forward and placed her hand gently on his shoulder. Calm down, Quentin. Let's not argue here. We can talk about this later, she said softly. No. He shook her hand off sharply. I'm done being polite, Mom. His voice was rough, his eyes flashing with something I didn't recognize. Either you agree to the repairs we've been asking about, or I crossed my arms tightly across my chest. Or what, Quentin? What are you going to do? His face darkened, twisted with rage. For a moment, he looked like a stranger standing in front of me, angry, cold, and hostile. I'll prove you incompetent, he blurted out, almost shouting. You're stuck in the past, refusing help, ignoring your safety. Those are signs of dementia. I can get a medical report and have a court declare guardianship over you. A cold chill ran down my spine. Was my own son really threatening to declare me incapable of managing my own house? You wouldn't, I whispered, my voice weaker than I wanted it to be. His eyes narrowed. Test me. Keep being stubborn and causing trouble, and you'll see exactly what I'll do. Quentin, Heather exclaimed, shocked by his harshness. You're out of line. No, she's out of line, he snapped back, pointing his finger accusingly at me. Always telling us how to raise our kids, criticizing how we live, and now refusing to help us. I'm sick of it. He turned back to me, his face hard and angry. Either you agree to the repairs and start acting reasonable, or I'll call the police. I'll tell them you're not capable of taking care of yourself, that you're a danger. Who do you think they'll believe? A successful businessman or a stubborn old woman clinging to the past? At that moment, Olivia, the woman with the big folder, stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable with the heated scene. I think I should leave, she said quietly. We can talk about this project later, when everyone has calmed down. No. Quentin grabbed her arm firmly. We're not leaving until we've inspected the whole house. Mom's just causing a scene again. She likes to be the center of attention. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Quentin, I'm asking you one last time, get out of my house now. Or what? He grinned, a cruel smile playing on his lips. What are you going to do, Mom? Call the police and kick your own son out? Yes, then do it, I said firmly, refusing to back down. Without hesitation, he pulled out his cell phone and handed it to me. Make the call, he challenged. I wonder what the police will say when they arrive and find us just trying to help an elderly mother with repairs, and she's throwing a tantrum. They'll probably think you need psychiatric help. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The shock and anger gave way to a cold, clear determination. I looked at my son and saw him clearly for the first time, a greedy, selfish man who didn't see me as a mother but as an obstacle to what he wanted. Leave, I said quietly but firmly, or I will call the police myself. Call, he almost shouted, his patience gone. Go away, I said, or I'll call the police. This is how a mother speaks to her son now. That's fine, he said through clenched teeth. That's just fine. I didn't say another word. I turned around, grabbed my bag from the hall table and walked out of the house. Behind me, I heard Quentin continuing to yell, Heather trying to calm him, but I didn't look back. I got into my car and pulled onto the road without a clear destination. I drove on autopilot, making the usual turns, stopping at traffic lights, letting pedestrians cross. Inside, there was nothing, no anger, no resentment, no fear. Just a deep, overwhelming exhaustion that filled every corner of my being without even realizing it. I found myself on a quiet street in the old part of town, parked in front of a small red brick office building. The sign above the door read, Radcliffe and Associates, Real Estate. I stayed seated in the car, staring at the building. The name Radcliffe sounded familiar. Kyle Radcliffe. I'd met him 6 months ago at the funeral of Sarah Tilden. Old friend. He was handling the sale of her house for the heirs. We had talked briefly at the wake, and he'd given me his business card casually, as people often do at such events. If you ever decide to move or buy something, give me a call, he had said with a kind smile. I reached into my purse, pulled out my wallet, and rifled through it until I found that very card. Kyle Radcliffe, Realtor. 30 years of experience specializing in luxury homes and retirement properties. I stared at the card, and slowly a plan began to form in my mind. Not just a way to escape today's fight, but a future plan, a way to live life on my own terms. free from Quentin's constant pressure and demands. I took out my phone and dialed the number on the card. After 3 rings, a man's voice answered. "Kyle, Radcliffe speaking." "Mr. Radcliffe," I said, surprised by the calmness in my own voice. "This is Judith Walpole. We met at Sarah Tilden's funeral." "Mrs. Walpole, of course. I remember you well," he said warmly. "How can I help you today?" I took a deep breath. "I want to sell my house," I said simply. "And I need your help." "Certainly," he replied. "Would you like to schedule a consultation? I have some time Monday morning." "No," I said, even though he couldn't see me shaking my head. "I want to start the process now. Can you meet me today?" There was a brief pause. "Actually, I'm in the office right now," he said finally. "If you can come by, I'd be happy to help. But selling a house is a big decision, Mrs. Walpole. Usually, I advise people to think it through carefully. I've already thought it through," I said firmly. "And I'm on my way." "Oh," he said, sounding pleasantly surprised. "Then come on in. I'm on the 2nd floor, office 205. I stepped out of the car and started walking toward the building. With every step, my resolve grew stronger. This wasn't an impulsive choice. It was a decision that had been growing inside me for a long time. Today's argument had only been the final push dot as I climbed the stairs to Kyle Radcliffe's office. I thought about how furious Quentin would be when he found out I'd put the house on the market. He'd yell, threaten, try to control me. But for the first time in a long time, I felt I had control. I knocked on the door marked 205 and heard a voice inviting me in. "Kyle." Radcliffe stood up to greet me, a tall, fit man, about my age, with grey hair and kind eyes. "Mrs. Walpole, it's good to see you. Though I'm sorry it's under such difficult circumstances," he said, shaking my hand. "Please have a seat." He gestured to the chair in front of his desk. "Would you like some coffee or tea?" "No, thank you," I replied, sitting down with my bag on my lap. "I want to talk about selling my house. How soon can I get started?" He looked at me carefully, and I saw understanding in his eyes. He had surely met many people in situations like mine during his long career. "It depends on a lot of factors," he said, sitting back down at the table. "The condition of the house, its location, market conditions, your price expectations. But before we start discussing the details, let me ask you this. Are you sure you want to sell the house? Sometimes people make these decisions in the moment and then regret it." I looked him straight in the eye. "Minus Mr. Radcliffe. I've never been so sure of anything in my life." He nodded as if accepting my answer. "Good. Then let's get started. Tell me about your house." And I began to tell him about the 4 bedrooms, the 2 bathrooms, the larger kitchen, and the spacious living room, the garden with the rose bushes I'd been growing for 20 years, the 2-car garage, and the basement where Edmund had set up a workshop. About the neighborhood where the house was located. Quiet, green with good schools and proximity to shopping and parks. Kyle listened intently, taking notes. When I finished, he asked a few follow-up questions about the age of the house, the condition of the roof, electrical wiring, and plumbing. Then, he turned on the computer and showed me similar homes that were for sale in my neighborhood and the prices they went for. "Based on your description and the market situation, your house could be worth between $700 and $800,000, he said. "But for a more accurate estimate, I would need to see it in person." "When could you show me the house?" I wondered. Quentin and his family usually came over for Sunday lunch every 2 weeks. The next visit would be tomorrow, but after today's incident I doubted they would show up. On the other hand, I didn't want to take any chances. "Could we do it on Monday?" I asked, Any time that suits Sayu. Monday works. He checked the calendar on his computer. How about 10 o'clock in the morning? Perfect. Great. Hammered a note on his calendar. Now, tell me, where do you plan to move to after you sell the house? Do you have anything in mind? I shook my head. No, not yet. But I'm thinking of a small house somewhere on the coast. My friend Eloise recently moved to Florida and is very happy with it. Florida is a great choice for retirees. Kyle nodded. Warm climate, lots of senior communities, good medical care. Would you like me to put you in touch with my colleagues there? They could show you the options. Yes, that will be wonderful. I felt the excitement growing inside me. For the first time in a long time, I was thinking about the future with optimism. Instead of anxiety, we discussed a few more details. The documents I would need to prepare, the sales strategy, possible timelines. Kyle was professional and attentive, not pushing or rushing, but not wasting time either. When I left his office an hour later, I had a folder of information and a preliminary contract for real estate services. We agreed that Kyle would inspect the house on Monday, and if everything was in order, we would sign the official contract, and the house would be on the market the following week. As I got into the car, I felt the tension release for the first time that day. It was replaced by a strange, almost euphoric feeling of freedom. I made a decision and took the first step toward a new life. A life without constant pressure, without having to justify every decision I made, without being seen as a burden or an obstacle to someone else's plans. On Monday morning at 10 o'clock sharp, Kyle Radcliffe rang my doorbell. He looked professional, strict suit, neat briefcase, friendly smile. I walked him through the house, showing him each room, talking about recent renovations and layout features. Kyle listened attentively, taking notes and pictures. The house is in great condition, Mrs. Walpole, he said when we finished looking around and sat down in the kitchen. You've taken good care of it over the years. Thank you. I poured us some tea. What do you think? How much could he be worth? Kyle pulled out his tablet and showed me a price comparison of similar houses in the neighborhood. Given the size, location, and condition, I'd recommend listing it for $750,000. That's a little above the average price, but your house is worth it. Plus, it gives us room to bargain. I nodded, mentally calculating what I could do with that amount of money. After paying all the taxes and commissions, I'd have enough left over to buy a small house by the ocean and have a decent amount in my bank account. When can we start? I asked. If you're ready to sign the contract today, I can advertise tomorrow, Kyle said, pulling a folder of paperwork out of his briefcase. We'll take professional photos, create an attractive description, and by the weekend, we'll probably have our first potential buyers. I signed the necessary papers, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and sadness. This house had witnessed so many events in my life. It was where Edmund and I had grown old together, where Quentin had spent his teenage years, where I had mourned the death of my husband. But it's time to move on. It would be best if you weren't home during the showings, Carl said, gathering the paperwork. Potential buyers are more comfortable viewing the house without the owners present. Yeah, I understand. I nodded. Don't worry. I'll find something to do after Kyle left. I walked around the house trying to see it through the eyes of potential buyers. What needs to be cleaned? What needs to be fixed? What needs to be freshened up? I started making a to-do list, and it turned out to be pretty impressive. Over the next few days, I immersed myself in the work. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. I started by clearing out the clutter that had quietly taken over my home. Old magazines and newspapers that had been piling up for months were tossed into the recycling bin. I sorted through closets, deciding what to keep, what to donate. Some clothes and household items I gathered and took to the local thrift store. It felt like shedding old layers, making space not just in the house but in my mind. Next, I hired a cleaning service to do a thorough deep cleaning, scrubbing, dusting, and polishing every corner so the house would shine for potential buyers. The gardener came soon after, trimming the rose bushes and tidying up the front lawn. The blooms needed care, and I wanted the garden to look its best. I replaced burned-out light bulbs throughout the house, fixed loose knobs on cabinets, and even painted the backyard fence a fresh white dot by Wednesday. A professional photographer arrived with his camera and equipment. He moved through every room, capturing the light and warmth of the home. He took pictures from angles that made the rooms look spacious and inviting, highlighting the garden, the kitchen, and the sunlit living room. I was surprised at how beautiful the photos turned out, better than I imagined. The very next day, Kyle emailed me a link to the online listing. I clicked on it and stared at the screen. The house looked bright, roomy, and cozy, just like I remembered it. It's somehow more polished and ready for a new family. The description was flattering. A classic 4-bedroom family home nestled in the prestigious Falls Church neighborhood, featuring a spacious kitchen, updated bathrooms, a manicured garden blooming with perennial roses, and located close to schools and parks. That evening, my phone rang. It was Quentin. I hadn't spoken to him since that difficult Saturday morning. I'd heard his messages on the answering machine, first angry, then softer, trying to make peace. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice unsure. "How are you?" "Fine. Thanks," I replied evenly. "And you?" "I'm okay," he answered. "Listen, about Saturday ... I wanted to say I'm sorry. I overreacted. I said things I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." His apology sounded more like a routine than genuine regret. But I chose to accept it. "Okay, I accept your apology," I said. "So does that mean we're okay now?" he asked hopefully. "The kids and I could come by on Sunday for lunch." Like usual, I hesitated. Kyle had advised me not to be at the house during the open viewing that Sunday. And honestly, after his outburst, I wasn't sure I was ready to see Quentin so soon. "That's not going to work this Sunday," I said carefully. "I have plans." "Plans?" His voice held surprise. "What kind of plans?" "Personal," I answered shortly. "Oh," he sounded confused but accepted it. "Maybe next week then. We'll see." I didn't want to promise anything. "I'll get back to you," I said after the call. I felt strangely lighter. I hadn't lied outright. But I hadn't told him about selling the house either. Part of me felt guilty, but another part knew it wasn't the right time for heavy explanations. I decided to let things unfold naturally. Then on Saturday, Kyle called with exciting news. "We already have a few interested buyers," he reported. Cheerfully. "They want to see the house tomorrow during the open house. I expect a lot of activity." Sunday came, and I spent the day at my friend Beatrice's house, grateful for a calm refuge. When I returned that evening, Kyle updated me. 15 potential buyers had come through, and 3 showed serious interest. "I think we'll get our first offer this week," he said confidently. I was glad I'd chosen Kyle as my realtor. He was efficient and kept me informed every step of the way. The first offer arrived Tuesday, $720,000 from a young couple with 2 children. We decided to wait a few days before deciding. That turned out to be a wise choice. On Thursday, a second offer came in, $740,000, from another young couple expecting their first baby. "They fell in love with your rose garden," Kyle said. With a smile, the wife had said she'd always dreamed of a home with roses. That touched me deeply. It was comforting to know my roses would bring joy to the new owners. Midweek, I started looking for a new place to live. Eloise had sent me links to houses in the small coastal town in Florida where she'd settled. One caught my eye immediately, a charming one-story house with a veranda overlooking the ocean. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a bright kitchen and living room, and just a 5-minute walk from Eloise's home. "It's perfect for you, Judith," Eloise said warmly when we talked on the phone. "There's plenty of room for you, and for guests if the grandchildren visit. But it's not too big, so it won't be a chore to keep clean." The price was reasonable, $420,000. I contacted a local realtor who sent more pictures and details. The more I learned, the more I dreamed about waking up to ocean sounds, eating breakfast on the porch, and walking along the beach at sunset. Then on Friday, the third offer on my house came through $760,000, $10,000 above the asking price. An elderly couple whose children had grown wanted to move closer to their grandchildren in Falls Church. "That's a great offer," Kyle said. "And they're ready to close quickly since they're already pre-approved for a mortgage. What do you think?" I didn't hesitate. "Let's accept it," I said. Kyle began handling the paperwork, and I contacted the Florida realtor to make an offer on that oceanside house. Everything was moving so fast that sometimes it felt like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. Over the weekend, I started packing. Not everything. Of course, I was still weeks away from closing, but I gathered the things I definitely wanted to take. Photo albums, favorite books, special mementos. I decided to leave most of the furniture behind. It had been chosen to fit this house, and it wouldn't suit the new home. Then, on Sunday evening, my phone rang. It was Heather. That was unusual. She usually sent texts instead. "Judith, hi," she said, her voice nervous. "How are you?